Back in December 2021, some of you may remember a video popping up here which covered the personal ships in my personal Farrister fleet, and why each was chosen. 2 years on, although the core of that remains unchanged, there have been some changes, and so it felt about time to refresh things to account for the passage of time. I'm Farrister, and this video will share which ships I've bought and why I bought them. First off, many of you who have watched ship review videos here will know I always try to emphasize that most of these ships can be bought in-game with in-game currency, and that's something I also try to do. Indeed, many of the ship reviews I publish are on ships that I've bought with Alpha UEC, not cash. That's especially important, as will become evident. I've spent plenty of real cash on this game too, but that's mostly out of convenience for making these videos, and you absolutely don't need to do that. Secondly, there are a few ships that make my personal hangar. Whilst the word fleet is used, that's mostly just because it seems to be the apt term of a selection of ships that fall under personal ownership. I'm really clear in my head, I'll only be flying one of these ships at a time and for different use cases. And thirdly, ship choice is often a very personal decision. As before, depending on your own circumstances, you probably don't need anywhere near as many ships in this. But also, my own mindset is such that I buy ships that are useful in the moment, or that I like the look of. Ultimately, how ships perform today could be very different to how they perform next year, or upon release, if you dare to use such a term for Star Citizen, and so I'm also open to the possibility of these ships changing as time progresses. So, with those qualifiers set out, it's probably helpful to next chat through my thought process. Whilst my fleet has grown over the past couple of years, and to some extent that's been to make my job of continuing to make videos for you fine viewers a little easier, I still plan carefully before making a purchase, as frankly, I have enough in my hangar as it is. The general concept is one of having ships optimized for different group sizes, ranging from solo gameplay to multi-crew to big raid-style multi-crew gameplay, and then interspersed within that, ships that give access to some of the core gameplay loops through the patches. The aspiration is that as somebody who makes Star Citizen videos, every time there's a patch, the core ships are sufficient to be able to play the game to unlock ships with in-game currency, whilst also having nearly day one access to the main gameplay loops to cover any changes. But you probably want to know about the ships. First up are the solo ships, the ships I expect to fly on my own. Essentially, these are to cover off the key gameplay options. The Crusader Industries Ares Inferno is my starfighter, my ship of choice for the combat scene. It's not particularly fast, not particularly agile, and certainly not currently an optimal choice for PvP, but that's not really how I play. For tackling NPC contracts it does just fine, and the aesthetics of the ship really catch my eye. Also, the noise of the ballistic Gatling gun is just wonderful. Then I have two ships from the MISC lineup, the Prospector and the Expanse. Quite simply, these ships are to give access to some industrial style gameplay through mining and refining respectively. Mining has been a bit of a mainstay for me over the years, and whilst the Prospector is at a fairly accessible price point in-game, the persistence through patches and updates has made it worth adding as a permanent feature, mostly to make life easier as somebody who makes videos. The Expanse makes the cut for a similar reason. Having access to day one refining gameplay, whatever that looks like, is likely to be a big time saver. Perhaps it'll work well with a Prospector, perhaps not, time will tell. Incidentally, the loaner for the Expanse is the Prospector, so I suppose in the short term I have two. The next two ships in the hangar make it because they add solo gameplay options, but also options to bring along a friend. The first of those is the C1 Spirit, recently released, which is here for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it has a short spawn timer, good quantum drive speed and range as stock, a little tractor beam turret for moving stuff around, and a cargo bay big enough for loading a rock mining rover in the back. That makes it a very convenient ship to have. But secondly, and similarly to the Ares, aesthetically it ticks the boxes for me. I think the ship looks great. The second of the solo/+1 ships is the Vulture. This is a ship I bought in-game and just fell in love with for the sole reason that the salvage gameplay is something I enjoy. Whereas mining is a bit more involved, salvage is something that can be done with a bit less brainpower, and sometimes that's exactly what is needed. The Vulture itself is not really all that special to me. After all, the Drake style isn't for everyone, but what is special is that it unlocks some meaningful gameplay for 1 or 2 people, and that's pretty powerful. Next up are 2 ships in what I've described as an either way category. That means they may well work with a single person, certainly one of them does currently, but they may also work with a small group. The first of these ships is the M2 Hercules, which has been a mainstay for the channel for some time now. Previously, it provided the utility I described when talking about the C1, in that it has a good range, fast stock drive, and is relatively easy to fly. Clearly, that functionality has been somewhat replaced for me now by the C1, but the M2 packs an expansive cargo bay, has plenty of room for transporting vehicles, and I often use it alongside other ships when out and about in the verse for that reason. Also, did I mention the looks? Fantastic. The Hercules seems to sit in a handy spot of being able to run quite a lot of cargo, but still being relatively easy to fly and navigate planetside, so hopefully will remain a fairly good moneymaker as time goes on. Some of you might be wondering why the M2 and not the C2, which in-game right now has more cargo storage and perhaps makes more sense. Well, you're potentially right for the time being, but in the long run the M2 may supposedly operate better in environments of a more dangerous nature with better armour and armament for such occasions, but also because the second ship in this either way category for me is the Hull D, which ticks the box of higher cargo storage. The Hull D makes it on the list purely because of the price increase to the Hull C, which was a buyback option for me from the original concept sale. When the price increased for the Hull C, the upgrade price to a Hull D was relatively small, which meant it was possible to unlock one of the largest cargo haulers in game for not too eye-watering a price. The Hull C videos have proved fairly popular with you, dear viewers, and so it made sense to pick up a Hull D for future video creation, as well as big-time hauling far beyond the scale of those mentioned previously. The minimum crew for the Hull D is mentioned as 3, so it may be that the ship could require some sort of a crew to function in the future. Time will tell. And the final ship is one that is all about that multi-crew experience. The ship I'm personally most excited for in Star Citizen, and that's the Javelin class destroyer. I expect to use this ship on a weekly schedule with a consistent group taking it out at the same time each week, similar to a raid type experience in many MMO games. As you might have guessed if you've heard me on other videos, I do not expect to operate this ship solo. In fact, I'd be a little disappointed if the full multi-crew experience was watered down, as I'm hopeful that this is the sort of ship where large-scale multi-crew really comes to life. I'm anticipating anywhere between 10 to 20 real people aboard, all working together to do something fantastic. I opted for the Javelin because it's all there in one hull. Unlike some of the other larger ships, which may be more about the smaller ships that they carry, the Javelin talks about being far more self-contained. There are lots of crew stations for different roles, ranging from bridge crew to a whole range of weapons positions, not to mention all the amenities aboard like the medical bay. It's also discussed as being highly defensible, with strong armor and shields, which appeals to my defensive gameplay preference. I'm hoping that all of that provides a great platform for running a whole range of different kinds of missions on a weekly basis, and who knows, maybe some great YouTube videos in the future. Outside of those ships, through different Star Citizen contests and also the referral program, I've picked up a random assortment of other smaller ships, things like ground vehicles or smaller fighters and the like. I appreciate that makes me very fortunate, more so than most, but I also expect that I'll spend a fair amount of time on ships I've bought in-game, and also by invitation onto ships owned by others. Multi-crew gameplay is a big draw for me, so whether I'm needed in the pilot seat, at the engineer station, or in a turret, I like the idea of being a useful person to have aboard, and so I hope to also be regular crew for others. Anyhow, talking about your personal Star Citizen fleet is a big discussion point amongst the community, so I'm really interested to read in the comments about what you think of my setup, my rationale, or maybe about the ships that you chose and why. As a reminder, these are personal decisions, and all you really need is a starter pack with a starter ship, and most of what we've talked about could be unlocked in-game on that basis with sufficient game time. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, in which case you might hit that like button, which helps to let me know what sort of thing you're finding most interesting to watch, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, you might like to do that too, so YouTube knows to show you more videos like this. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed, and as ever, thank you for watching.